Black, 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 black coffee worshipping. We should get a theme tune, right? Like a Cheers style theme tune, I think would be cool. Something dead jingly and catchy. Yeah, that one day we'll do that for sure. Black Coffee Worship Podcasting. We are here live at the Caves of Worship, sipping and slurping Göteborgska's own, the Gothenburg blend. Tasty, tasty stuff, always black. This episode of Black Coffee Worship Podcast, I was thinking about coffee locations of where you've drank coffee, where I've drank coffee, and what it makes you feel, and the good vibes that you get from it. So, maybe the best coffee that I've ever drunk in the location, and the worst coffee that I've ever drank, and be honest about it. So, I've drinked a lot of coffee in a lot of locations, and I take a lot of photos of whilst I'm drinking this coffee. Various people as well are welcomed, and we've drank with before. So this is a podcast about black coffee drinking in locations, the best, the worst, and the faves that we've done in the past. So there's two styles of coffee drinking, I think, around in the world. There's your day-to-day, morning-to-morning coffees, which is like your go-tos that you must make and drink to get through the days. But then there's also other style of a social fika style coffee drinking, where it's more of a pause section where you can stop to take time with friends and families and really have a great coffee session, which is my favourite ways of drinking black coffee, is those pause style reflecting coffee sessions. They're my favourites. So it's just to go through some locations where I've drank coffee and had those pause style coffee sessions that were my favourites, and I'd love to hear your favourites as well in the comments below, or DM them across, and then we can try next time we're in those locations. So I have written out some of the locations that we've been to in the past and slurped black coffee. And here's some of our favourites and ones that are very memorable. With the pause sessions of drinking coffee, I believe it can bring through great thoughts and feels and vibes from, you can have a great cup of coffee somewhere, but if the area in the location ain't too hot, it won't be as good as, let's say, a bad cup of coffee somewhere, and you would have it in a sick place that's proper vibing hard. It would make that coffee even better than it actually is, if that makes sense. So there's two ways, you could be listening to your own music by yourself, drinking coffee in a location, and it'll be great, or you could be with friends and family. So it's all about where were those times that was great, and the locations available that happen. So I will, on the video section of the YouTube channel, I'll throw up a photo of that coffee I'm talking about, and where it was, and so you can see it. So the first one I'm thinking of, coffee locations, great ones for me that always stick there when you think about slugging that great cup of black coffee for those pausing sessions, is photo coming up now, 56th Street in New York City. I sat here, this is before launching Black Coffee Worship, and I sat there on 56th Street, which is in the centre of the town. I grabbed a coffee from, do you know what, I can't even remember, it was some supermarket style side off street, off license thing. And it had the old New York's best coffee in the window, like every single one does. But I just sat there with my coffee in this photo you can see here, 56th Street, and just people watched, and the speed of that city is crazy. I love New York, as you can probably tell from loads of my releases, the Warriors stuff and the New York coffee mug that we've got. I just sat there and people watched. In this bench on 56th Street, And the pace of that city is something else. People are just go non-stop, and that was just in the urban metropolis of New York, vibing hard. How I feel New York City has a great coffee scene as itself, and with all the people walking past, maybe every 8th person out of 10 had a cup of coffee in their hand, be it from a chain or not. I got mine, I think after that session, after this photo, I went down the street and got Birch coffee from Birch Coffee, and great tasting coffee. But this little sort of 7-Eleven style corner shop coffee, I called it, was just made so much better where we were sitting in New York. And it was just absolutely incredible watching all these people and just swigging this coffee black, of course, like the New Yorkers do. So this is what I was trying to say about, you could have a bad cup of coffee somewhere, but if you're vibing hard in an awesome place, it can turn that coffee into a great coffee, which, sometimes I'll have a swig of something, I'll think back to that time before Black Coffee Worship launched, and these little ideas in my head of launching coffee companies, and sitting there in New York thinking, this will be an awesome thing to have, is your own coffee brand going out there. So New York City, 56th Street. Let me know where in New York you have drank good coffee, and probably get there on the next one. The next location is at the Hallgrímskirkja view out point in Iceland at Loki Cafe, which is on the corner of the big church section there. So we got it was quite nostalgic coffee drinking session there, where we went up and we went inside. We went to the second floor of Loki Cafe, which is on the corner. Highly recommended. It's the place where they do the shark food. We didn't have it, fermented shark. We didn't have any, but we seen somebody having some, and he nearly threw it all up, so we stayed away from that at the time. But we sat in the corner in like a bay window on the second floor, and it just started heavy snowing. And again, the actual vibe in that cafe at the time there when I went was it's like you stepped back into your grandma's house. It was all really, for me, my grandma's house, like very Nordic and Scandi, with all these sort of slip mats in the windowsill, woven ones, and little troll trinkets here, and these curtains with these low-hanging lights, very Nordic, very the low light, especially IKEA vibes we get from that for sure. So we sat there and we had a coffee. I had this Brennevin cafe, which came with like a liqueur thing that you put in on the side. I shouldn't have put it in because it ruined the coffee as it was, but I just totally remember that sort of vibe, the snow hitting hard outside, which was a great location to have. So if you're ever in Iceland, Loki Cafe, second floor, looking out at Hallgrímskirkja, which is the big church there in the centre of Reykjavik in Iceland. Highly recommended. This Scandi Gothenburg blend is going down a treat as we're drinking it here on this Black Coffee Worship podcast. The next location, I'd say, I'm going through the locations where I remember nostalgic, great vibes, times of slurping good coffee at the places, would be one time I woke up really early. I'm going to say like maybe 5:30 a.m. in Rome, and walked out of my apartment that we were staying at, and I sat in the central square where the Pantheon is, and it was completely empty. Anybody that's been to Rome before knows that the Pantheon section, it gets as busy as some of the streets in London do with the crossings and stuff. And I sat there 5:30, and it was weird to see that square so empty. And I found one place that had an espresso. They didn't have the takeout cup, so I had to buy an espresso and walk out with the little espresso cup, the porcelain one, and the plate. And I said, "Can I take this and sit out here and I'll bring it back?" And they said, "Yeah, sure, that's fine." So I took it. Italians, the great people there, and I sat there, and about maybe 5:45 in the morning, it was like a pinch supplement. Around the corner comes just a guy in a wedding suit, followed by his bride in her wedding dress, all white, into the centre of the Pantheon with nobody else around, and there was just me and those two people in the centre. And I'm pretty sure we clocked eyes at one point and thought, okay. And then a crew came behind them and they were taking their wedding photos whilst it was empty. But for a split second there, what the fuck is going on here? What's in this espresso in Rome by the Pantheon? These two people are coming out. It was like a retro sort of vintage man suit and the wedding dress. So it's like gone back in time to like classic Italian style. So yeah, when I drink an espresso that's strong and bitter, single espresso, really strong, it sometimes takes me back to those weird ghostly Rome Pantheon steps sitting, where I sat there and very early in a quiet morning I heard the steps coming round the corner, and yeah, just from a distance. Didn't have my glasses on at the time, so I could just hear them and see them a little bit, and yeah, it fucked me up a little bit for a second, but that was an awesome time as well. And the next place I'd say is up there for a great location, if anybody ever gets a chance to, is to even just get out in nature to your local forests or your hillsides or mountains, wherever, or even by the coast and stuff. Just your local nature, if you can, by yourself, to have a little reflect and sit down and take a BCW travel mug and sip out in the forest. If you get that sort of great hour sometimes when the sun's rising or setting, in a quiet section, just listen to the nature and the forest and the woodlands that are around. Highly recommend. Some of the best coffee sessions I think I've had is when I go on my bike out into the woods in a thermos travel mug, and yeah, just pitch up, sometimes put some headphones on and listen to some music, just zone out and be one with nature. It sounds quite hippie, but I'm a hippie at heart, so throw it in with the Scandi black metal forest vibes and it all locks in together. So yeah, definitely getting those blues and greens in is important for black coffee drinkers. Getting out there, getting one connected with nature, big boost up that you should be trying to do with your coffee location scout outs for you to try. Highly recommend. The last one on my list is probably at my dear Auntie Yvonne Johansson's Helvalsholm home in north of Göteborg in Gothenburg. I'll link up the photo again here. Cold Swedish mornings there, with the frost and the snow outside. This one is more of the vibe of the place and that sort of bring back nostalgia to thinking about where you are, what's going on, and at the time of tasting that coffee, having those sort of nostalgia trips. So being there at a family member's address to sit there is a really good one to be drinking coffee with your friends and family. So more of a social aspect, but still having time to pause and reflect there at Helvalsholm in Sverige. So this part of the video is probably where I'll break down the best, I think, of where I've had a coffee in my years and years of drinking black coffee, and the worst of drinking black coffee. So the best black coffee I can think of, it's an oddball and it's probably going to shock a few people coming out of nowhere, but it was actually after a long drive from Liverpool up to Newcastle, then the train from Newcastle to Edinburgh to fly to Landvetter, Göteborg airport, and just drank one espresso maybe before we left on the road, and I didn't have a coffee all day. And then we finally landed at the airport and we got out all rushed, and travelling's hard sometimes. I don't like to, the actual journey, I'm not into the planes and whatnot, but travelling out there and landing at Landvetter airport, I had a ridiculously great sludge diner style coffee from Hertz Rent-A-Car in Landvetter airport. and it was just one of those bean ground machines. You get them at car dealers as well, cup under a plastic paper cup or whatever it was, throwed under, pressed for Americano, and it came out like sludge, like thick dark sludge, and it reminded my dad of Brig Cafe, he said, and you could smell it as it was brewing and stuff. And maybe that coffee was better than I actually thought, just because of the hard travel that we've been doing throughout the day. But then to sit there and get this coffee and in the sofa, it was so refreshing. It's so nice to be back in the homeland and have this very Nordic tasting coffee in a Hertz rent-a-car out of all these places. So yeah, they'll shock you and surprise you where you can get some of the best ones. You can go to the best, expensive coffee joints in the world. I went to one in Uptown Manhattan one time, and I can't remember how much I paid. I must have paid maybe like $9.50 for a cup of coffee, a small cup of coffee, and it was good. It was great, but yeah, sometimes these free coffee refills in the corner at the Hertz rent-a-car will smash those ones out the park. So yeah, stick around for those, definitely. Without further ado, the worst coffee I can probably remember, and it always sticks in my head. The worst coffee was in Berlin, in Germany. We went to a chain place. I can't remember the chains of them, what it was, but it was like lukewarm, musty swamp water. It wasn't black. It was like a very clear looking, and it wasn't a nice clear coffee where you get that sort of aromatic fruity. It was just bad coffee in Berlin. And again, talking about the place and the vibes, when we went to Berlin, we did not have a great time in Berlin. So you were sticking into the front foot that this is going to be shit as you went in, and that really did play on the taste of the coffee. But it was lukewarm as it was, and it was musty. It definitely had expired, I'd say, in Berlin. So stay away from the chain places in Berlin. They are nicht so gut, as they say. But yeah, Berlin was not a vibe on that trip whatsoever. To round it off, probably favourite coffees, and this is the one where you could think back, this is a favourite coffee, and if you could pick any coffee that you'd want to have, and the vibe and the people and the time that you could choose to have ever again, would be we went for a hike outdoor fika break with my dear late gone mother, who passed away sadly from cancer in 2012. We went for a fika break at Surprise View in Borrowdale, which is near Derwentwater in Keswick. So after moving from Göteborg to England, we moved to the Lake District, and yeah, I remember one time, it must have been 2010 maybe, going up there, or 2011. Yeah, it could have been 2011. No, 2010, sorry. She passed away in 2012 from cancer, and 2010 we went through there and had a fika break by Surprise View. I'll send a photo up of Surprise View. If anybody's ever in the Lake District, highly recommend getting up there. It can be quite a sketchy drive, but once you're there, the views are incredible. And we sat up there on the picnic bench and just had a really good heart-to-heart pause, a fika break, talking about the past, the present, what was going on, and what was going to happen in the future for both of us. So yeah, if you could ever pick a time to go back to and a favourite coffee to have ever again, it would probably be that coffee fika break with my dear gone mama in Borrowdale at Surprise View. So I'll put the GPS for Surprise View car park in the description. Definitely recommend you going out there if you ever get a chance. So that's it for some of the greats, the best, some of our faves, and the worst, obviously, there. Coffee locations to go to, or I've been to, with Black Coffee Worship. So again, like I said at the beginning, it was the day-to-day morning coffees which you just have and you need to use to get through the day. This was more about the pause in coffee locations where you sit, you take time, and you think back, oh, that was a great meet up with friends, that was a great time I listened to that album in the forest. I highly recommend you try and get out there and have those awesome meetups, fikas, and coffee location spot drinks that are going on. What's your best? What's your worst that you've had, and your favourite too? Comment below, send a DM over, let us know. We'd really, really like to know. Stay rad, stay hydrated. Peace.